Hello, hello. Happy today. And we are just coming off of the World Pharmacist Day. If you are a pharmacist listening to this, I hope you were celebrated. And if you were not, I hope you celebrated yourself. It's very important. And if you are a non pharmacist listening to this, I hope you celebrated the pharmacist in your life. Okay, today's episode is very close to my heart. Welcome to episode 15 of the It Goes Without Saying podcast. This is part of the mini series, the Pharmpreneur series, where we're talking about, all things pharmacy, healthcare. You know, um, Today's episode, as I've said, is very close to my heart. It's about the evolving role of the pharmacist in the age of AI, data, digital healthcare, and what this means for how we practice, how we collaborate, and how we show our value. This show our value bit can be very, very touchy, but let's just get into it. This episode is kind of long. It's longer than we try to keep the episodes short, but this one is long for good reason. And so what I've done is to split it into five, six sections. Yeah, I'm just gonna keep it brief. We'll expand, I think, over time, but yeah. We'll begin with talking about the changing landscape, AI, and digital healthcare. Recently, I wrote an article about the AI first hospital in China. Doing this research and reading up about it reminded me of something very important because normally I would block this out. And it's this: we can no longer afford to keep saying AI won't take over. See, how can it? Who can? Where? The truth is, it's already here and it's advancing faster than we can keep up with. Sometimes the tools are already in use long before the media even reports them, long before we even read about them, long before we catch wind of them. So the real question isn't whether AI will replace us, it's how do we position ourselves to remain relevant? And that's where the conversation about skills come in. At this point, I'd like to say, I wouldn't say replace us either, but there are things that we're doing that are repetitive and can be automated to drive efficiency in the sector, in our institutions where we practice, in our lives generally. And yeah, these are two key things to look out for really. If AI can take over these kinds of tasks, it will. It's already doing that. At this point, we're talking more collaboration than replacement. Only few persons are quick to cut off, workforce to employ AI, but this is where we are today. So back to it. This is where skills come in. They say it's not AI that will replace us. It's people who know how to use these tools that will, replace colleagues and things like that. So the next section here we'll be talking about skills for the future. I find this very interesting. I've always had it in my mind since I read it. I don't have the full list here. I'll maybe share a picture or something, but it's an infographic from the World Economic Forum. Um, the World Economic Forum released a list of the most essential skills for 2030. What struck me about this list is you didn't see things like coding, software development, data analysis, product design. Instead, it emphasized on soft skills, curiosity, adaptability, emotional intelligence, collaboration, and things like that. Why? If you need to ask why, then it's because, well, AI can automate tasks, repetitive tasks, calculations, flag drug interactions. I'm speaking specifically now to the healthcare sector. What it cannot automate is human empathy, judgment, the ability to build trust. Um, yeah, okay, yeah, but that's our edge. That's still an edge we have as healthcare practitioners. Um, we still have people who want to interact with human beings who you want to meet face to face with the person who's going to be responsible for your care. Um, you can leverage these tools, but you don't what's the word I'm looking for? You don't lease out the role that your human empathy, judgment, trust building. you don't lease out these bits to the bot, because at the end of the day, a bot is a bot is a bot, and a human is a human is a human. The next section we'll be going into, like I said, I'm just trying to keep the different sections short, is the role of data and why documentation matters. I am working on a pharmacy documentation app, or platform. We've been on it for over a year now, and so this is another important thing for me, but also because it's something that keeps coming up in any conversation I'm having with colleagues, or when we show up in webinars or we have conferences. You cannot take the place, you cannot take away the importance or the place of documentation. Another big lesson for me came during this webinar, where a pharmacist of over 40 years, the webinar was hosted by Mzor, just quite recently, really, and I'm piggybacking off of it because I was just nodding throughout. I was able to resonate with a lot of things that were said in the course of that webinar. And well, this thing that hit home for me was um, just a reminder that when it comes to documentation, it's not just about proving yourself or proving your value, because I don't really like when we phrase it that way. But it's about providing evidence. Well, it's the same thing, but still, um, I would say it's creating undeniability, right? Let people see, people who have eyes, let them see what it is that you have been doing, what your contribution is. Let them realize by themselves, with the right information, what exactly your role is in the space that you're operating in. Without data, we cannot map disease trends. We cannot advocate for banning unsafe medicines. We can't argue for supply chain reforms or cost equity. The truth is that data speaks much louder than our feelings ever will. All these um squabbles that we tend to engage in with long memos and all that. When we document well, it improves collaboration, because then, you know, we're able to appreciate where we intersect and then what the differences in our roles are. When we document well, it also improves collaboration. When we refer a patient to another professional, we're not just handing them over, we're handing over insights, history, context that they can, build up on, especially when it's in emergency cases. And it makes care, again, the most important person in all of this conversation is the patient whose life we're all looking to improve, right? So it makes this care effortless or seamless. Let me not say effortless. It makes this care seamless. Um, the next thing I will talk about is the story from my practice. And this happened very recently too, where a patient um there are a couple of stories in practice. I mean, if you're practicing, you always have like things to share. When you meet different situations, some of them are fascinating, interesting, risky. Again, this is where documentation comes in, just so that we can share these experiences and know how to approach them. This recent story was about a patient with a long list of supplements, and um I could just have supplied the supplements, but I was concerned because it's a very long list of supplements. I'm very careful whether it's supplemental medications for, and you're buying in quantities that suggest you want to take them consistently. We need to talk, even though many persons are, we have many vendors for supplements. We need to talk about um we need to talk about administration of these things and how, what the long-term effects could be on the organs, why it's not a good idea to do these things consistently or to overdo them. We need to have more conversations around that. And so in having a conversation with the patient, I realized, or I learned from him, that these supplements were things he had seen online from different healthcare um content creators, or and we are in a space where information is everywhere. So when patients approach you now, you cannot fault some of the ideas that you have around that care. It's only dangerous because this information does not apply to everybody. And so that's where we really step in. When you're looking to um not intercept, what's the word? Um mm, I can't believe I'm trying to remember this word. Give me a second. Give me a second. Sorry, it's taking a while. I'll get back on it. Give me a second. I was saying something around, I think I was trying to remember intervention. That's the word I was trying to remember. Intervention. Back to the story. As we talked, I realized that he was just taking this advice from different persons and he had built himself a long list of medications to take, which is not safe, whether or not they are supplements or medicines, right? Supplements are medicines, aren't they? Um and so to have a conversation with him where I didn't immediately dismiss everything that he had learned online. When you want to get patient buy-in, you don't begin by disagreeing with them. There's a book I read recently, Diary of a CEO, where in one of the chapters, I think it was titled "Never Disagree," and the idea here was that when you want to get buy-in, you want to have a conversation with someone, you don't begin by disagreeing with them because then it activates you know brain centers that become defensive. They don't hear a thing that you say. But when you welcome the conversation, you begin with the parts that you agree with, and especially when they are factual, it just helps them to get into the conversation with you, and then you can now influence or point them in the right direction. Especially now where the information that they can get online are things that make sense, right? It's not the one where Google is telling you that you'll die. Even Google now has Gemini to help you dissect and then refer you to the sources and then still tell you to go talk to your healthcare professional. Um, so that's the way to go about it. And that was how I kind of started with him. The parts about what the supplements will do for blood pressure, yes, you're right here and here and here, but they don't take care of the underlying cause. They don't address these things and not at the pace you want them to because this is an issue to take care of immediately, and we were able to place him on um medications for his blood pressure after getting his history and things like that. That was my moment to step in, not just as a dispenser, but as a counselor. We're not just dispensers of medicines, and I'm really tired. I don't think I'll keep saying that. I don't think I'll keep, sounding like I'm begging you to see what we do. But yeah, we. I don't even take offense anymore when I see videos that I saw one today, this morning. If you work in the pharmacy, shut up. Don't. So I don't want to think about it. I don't want to give that any room in my head at all. But the ignorance is really appalling, and it's something to address. And the way I think what my approach is going to be is just to speak to the things that we do, as opposed to defending against things that have been said as to what we shouldn't do. I don't know if that makes sense. Um, but yeah, I explained what mattered for his blood pressure, counseled him on lifestyle medication, what to modify, what to prioritize, especially around diet and physical exercise. And then I referred him for proper follow up. We're not in the same state. So this for me is what pharmacy practice is about. This is what it means for me to be a healthcare professional. I was having a conversation recently where I explained that anything I'm doing, any project I'm involved in, what really drives me is to see improvement. Improve life of the patient, improvement in the system, improve efficiency, improve timing for the project implementation, ease of use of the product, stuff like that. So that's the feel for me. And in practice too, as a healthcare professional, for the business, for the patients, for the sector, it's not just about moving products, it's about protecting lives, right? And even when it means telling someone less is more, because like I said, I would have just, it's supplements just sell, I know, but no, practice is more than that. Um, we have just the next section would just be to emphasize on collaboration and trust in healthcare. In all of these things, it brings me to collaboration. One of the hardest truths is that patients often suffer because healthcare data is fragmented. Imagine if every provider had access to the same updated records of, a single individual patient. How much safer and more cost effective it will be. This is coming to mind because in the webinar I mentioned, I'm piggybacking off of, um, there was a story about a patient who came in with with different prescription lists, and in reviewing the prescriptions that he had or the medicines they were taking like different brands of the same medication. It's just because it's part of this problem. What contributes to this problem is that fragmentation. Again, this is where documentation comes in. At this point in this age of existence, like when you when you come to a healthcare professional for your health, you should have your history. And I'm really advocating for brands. These are things I will explore in talking about health tech. Brands that help you have your um history on hand, whether it's a wearable or an app on your phone, whatever. Because we really can't still be saying things like, oh, they gave me infusion. Which infusion? One yellow one. Which medicine did they give you? Yellow one. The hospital did not tell me the name. Just put it in drug envelope. I think, no, I think it's your right as a patient, as an individual, to know what it is that's going into your system. Like I couldn't. Sorry. There's no situation where I don't know what it is I'm putting into my body. Like there'll be another episode on what I think the role of agency should be when it comes to the patients. For you as an individual who is not a healthcare professional, the things that you should insist on. You need to know what it is you're taking. It is your right to have that information. And have just look, this conversation on documentation is for everybody. If you're managing your own health, if you're managing the health of a loved one, if you're a caregiver, whether or not you're a professional, you need to document these things. Medicines you're taking, how frequently you've taken them, how you've taken them, what brands you have taken. Just write it down somewhere. Take pictures on your phone, put it together so that when you're to refer someone somewhere else, or you want to continue care elsewhere in a different location, you just bring all those things, and you don't start saying, I don't know, they gave me yellow, they gave me blue. That's not information. That there's nothing we can do with that. And the danger with this is interactions, or just overall poor health or poor health outcomes. So everybody should be intentional about documentation, because I'm feeling really, yeah, everybody should be intentional about that. Given that our system is fragmented when it comes to data, at least for now, let's take responsibility for our health. Let's contribute to our overall health outcome. Um, for pharmacists, this means building trust, not only with patients, but with other healthcare professionals. Because there are situations where you have your data, and you go to the wherever else, the institution you're referred to, and they prefer to do their test or assessment from the beginning, which is not even, you can't fault that. But where it's important, as I've established before, is in emergency cases, right? That said, in building trust, it requires competence. Competence is a mix of three things, as I've learned recently: knowledge, skill, which is the application of that knowledge, and then experience. Conversations, really, just talk with your healthcare professionals, with your colleagues in the healthcare space. Many of them, if I'm being completely honest, might be defensive even before they even get to hear your voice, right? They just know, oh, I'm calling, I'm a pharmacist, I'm calling, or I'm a doctor, I'm calling. There's no need for defensiveness. Let's prioritize collaboration for the overall well-being of the patient and the healthcare sector. I know it goes. Oh my goodness, I know that um, it's easier said than done. It's easier said than done. Like, it doesn't just go just because it's been said. It's reminding me of the title of the podcast, but I mean, it's essential. We need to try. We need to try to collaborate, to have conversations, to work with each other. And truth is, there are many persons, many professionals who are willing to just work with other professionals. This multidisciplinary collaboration. So if you meet people who, you know, tell you a different story or aren't very collaborative, this is just a reminder that there are others out there who are willing to collaborate, who are, interested, or who prioritize the overall well-being of the patient and the system. So we've talked about competence, trust. You competence. When we bring value, collaboration stops feeling like a competition. That's how I'll just close this out. In summary, and here's the bottom line for everything I've said so far: AI is advancing quickly. AI is here to stay. Um, But this is where we start to talk about the pharmacist of the future, or the healthcare professional of the future. This person, this individual, is not somebody who's afraid of change. Change can be scary, but this is not the time to be afraid of change. It's This is a time for the person who is curious enough to learn, disciplined enough to document and document consistently, and compassionate enough to put our patients first. Like I said, we're just coming off of World Pharmacist Day. My call to us is simple. Let's be builders. Let's build. This is the age of building. We have the tools at our disposal. Let's be builders. Let's equip ourselves with the skills, the data, and the heart to shape the future of healthcare. Because at the end of the day, our worth is not measured by systems or titles. That's another thing I'm going to talk about at some point. It is measured by the lives that we improve. Having said all of these things, I celebrate you. Yeah, healthcare professionals everywhere who are doing their best, mm, despite all these challenges that we face. That's it. Enjoy the rest of your week or until we see again. Let's get it.